Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the shop. It is, let's see if I can get a little more, there's a little more light for your pleasure. It is Thursday morning, July 20th, and once again, it's raining outside. So it just makes for a mess of everything down here. Let me get some more light turned on behind the video camera. That's a little better. Alright, here's kind of what I've been doing in the off time. It's just a little bit of, very little bit of work. It's just, it's starting to do the little stuff that's going to take a little bit of time. I'm hoping to have the plane ready to cover within a month. It's all the little stuff that's not going to, it's not a big job, it's just a ton of little stuff. So what I'm going to try to get done today, and I got half a day off tomorrow, I started working on prepping certain areas. You can kind of see it's got some white, some filler in it. I'm trying to clean up the mess that was made before, so when I cover it, you don't see how poorly things were sanded underneath. What I ended up doing was going into our local hardware store, that Ace place, and before I used to use the DAP, it's called Dry Dex. Which, you know, it goes on pink, and then when it dries, it dries white. So that way you know when it's dry. But it's just a spackling compound, lightweight. The squeeze tube works best because you squeeze a little bit on it, and then just swipe with your finger and let it set up. So this has to get sanded, and that one should be just about ready to go. The other thing I ended up doing, because I don't think I did any video on this, I ended up go ahead and got this reattached, glued. I've got to put one hinge in. I'm going to do that today as well. I'll get that done this morning, so you'll see that very soon. And what I did is I kind of came in with some reinforced epoxy, filled it. I gotta sand it down so that I can get the proper radius to it. And then I'm going to come in straight in from this direction, straight in, and put in a piece of bamboo dowel rod and glue it in, just to keep it so that, I mean, right now this is really strong, but just in case something cracks, it's going to keep it or slow it down from wanting to rotate inside. I'm hoping so. But when I did glue this up, I made sure that it was sitting on a flat piece of wood clamped down, so it's straight all the way across. So that's good to go. So, on that happy note, I'm going to spend about the first 20 minutes just getting stuff out. I got to get the wings out of the shop, get those upstairs. Try to clean off the bench the best I can, just for right now. And then I've got to dig out the tools I need to put in a new hinge joint. And I'm hoping everything will go well. If it doesn't, then I got to go run to the hardware store and get a special cutting blade. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'll keep you informed. Let me get the shop cleaned up. I'll bring you right back. All right, I'm back here. We're ready to get the ball rolling. Sorry, I'm way down here now. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to put the first hinge in. I'm going to put the hinge. We've got to install one hinge, because one hinge I have no idea what I did with it. I think I probably ended up throwing it up with some scrap. So anyway, so what I did was I got a Great Plains slot machine. Haven't used it. There we go. Haven't used it in about 10 years, so it should work out fine. If I've got to make a little adjustment to the slot, I can do it. I don't know. It almost looks like they made the slot originally with a shotgun, because it's, if you can get a really close, whoa, you can get a really close up look. I'll bring you in later on. The slot didn't need to be that wide. At least I'm hoping it's not going to have to be that wide, because if I've got to widen it up, I've got to figure out what I'm going to get in this slot. Anyway, what I did is I used a little Great Plains center finder, and what this did, let me get you back up on the plane. That looks pretty good. What this does is this comes in, and you set the little flats up, and then when you rotate it, you know that it's going to be right in the dead center of it. And then I just had to eyeball it to make sure that it's going to be running level all the way across, because what we're more worried about is we don't really care so much about the up and down. That could be a little bit off. It's the rotation side to side. You want to make sure that it's straight. And it's a good possibility that that's why they made these slots so wide, because of the way that he cut them out. He didn't have much of a choice because they were probably at different angles. This one is slanted down a little bit, so he probably had to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come through with a fine drill bit, drill down through it, through the material, and you normally use excuse me, you normally use just toothpicks through it. I don't know if I've got any toothpicks upstairs. I'll take a look. If not, I'll just whittle down some bamboo and run that through. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing drilled through, hopefully straight. Hope you're watching. Keep your fingers crossed. It's looking level. It's looking good. And this is my first time using this through a hardwood. I've always done it through balsa in the past. I normally use Robart round pin hinges in the big planes, but this one, because I figured let's rebuild it the same way with the materials they used back in the day. And even though Robart was alive, oh, there we go. It's a little bit of a down angle, but I think it's going to work just fine, because as things are looking, I'm going to have to slot these open a little bit wider. So I'm going to have to try to figure out how I want to do that. I'll see if I can get this just by angling this up and down. See what happens. Alright, step 2 or 3, I'm going to use this little old Zona saw to hopefully pierce through and see if I can open it up a little bit better. Yeah, this might work okay. There's a certain amount of resistance on it, so hopefully without splitting the wood I can open it up enough to make the hinge work. Oh, we're almost there. Just a little bit more. Alright, there we go. It is in. Alright, let me take you off the stand real quick. Hopefully everything works out well for all of us here. Alright. So this is with the hinge all the way in. Sorry, this is going to be really wobbly for you guys. Alright, so as you can see, the hinge line is cut through and it's pretty darn straight. So this piece will just go ahead and slide right in. I'll make another one on the elevator on the other side. Now you saw how nice and clean that was. Now you can see just how sloppy these were, how big and wide open they were. And although that one's level, that one didn't need to be so sloppy. It's a little off, but not bad. So, and you can see how big this one was. So what I'm probably going to do, I'm going to have to figure that one out. I don't want to leave that much slop in it because that's where the pin goes through for the bolt. So what I'm probably going to do is come in and at least fill it with epoxy. Some reinforced epoxy, just float it in there. You kind of really don't want to epoxy these in just in case you got to pop them out. That's why you pin them in with some, so if you needed to take them out, you don't glue them in. You just kind of press them in, pin them, and it's the little pins that hold it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do fixing that one up. And I got to sand these down a little bit so when it comes time to recover, and I still have a little bit of covering material stuck in little spots here. So I'll get to work on this. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one, the elevator, will get cut through. So I'll do this off camera, get it cut through, and then kind of, there's my little lines, push it together and pin it so that you know, it's not going to move, and then I can take the little hinge clevises, not the clevis, the cotter pins. So I'll bring it back. Hold on tight. All right, I got the slot put in the elevator. It was fun because this little gem, it decided to fall apart on the inside, so I had to take the thing apart to get the screws. It was the screws and nuts that hold the blades into place. One of them fell off and dropped down inside, so I had to take it apart, which was fun. So anyway, you know, made in China. It's as good as it gets. All right, what I ended up doing, because I'm gonna put the, instead of using the hinge pins, the little cotter pins that come with it, because they're a real pain in the butt to get in and out. You only really want to, you know, put them on when you're finishing up, but make something else, because they're 45 thousandths cotter pins. Took some 45 thousandths piano wire and made some little pins that I can just slide right in. So they're going to do exactly what those cotter pins are designed to do, but they can more easily go in and come back out again. So said myself. Alright, I got one in. Alright, let me go ahead. I'll bring it back down here. The sun's coming out. Let me see if I can get you outside with the hopes you can still hear my charming voice. Alright, alright, so there's one pin in. Let me slide one in on this side. I might have to do a little tweaking on this outer hinge. Let me at least get these couple pins in. Because I want to see what kind of movement I'm going to have, and what I can already see little things I'm going to have to make modifications to and or move. I think it'll be a little bit of both. Let's get these put in. Bad hinge joint. I may have to take that apart and modify it because it looks pretty damn crappy. And that one's looking just as crappy. Oh, I see what it is. Alright. More mods. Alright, what I'm going to have to do is I'll get this one pinned in place. I'll take it apart. What I'm going to have to do, let me bring it back inside here real quick. I'm trying to see. why this hinge is moving, and you got to realize if it wants to move up, there's got to be compression. So there's compression down here at the bottom. So I'm going to have to come in and hog this out. So what I'll do is, because this is a piece of spruce, I'll come in, I'll cut this down and hog this out a little bit deeper than it needs to be, and then just put another little piece of spruce in here just to double up, just in a little short little section. I could taper it just so it looks pretty on the inside. So anyway, because what I want to do is I want to be able to unhook. There's going to be a little opening here, probably just on one side. So if I have to take this off for any reason, because this does have these little cover plates, I got to figure out if I want to make them out of aluminum, which I'll probably just make them out of polystyrene. But these will go in right here. So if you need to get inside to get these things off, it could be done. So I'll make something back here, because I'm not 100% happy with how they did it. So I've got to find this piece too. I don't know what I did with it. So more fun for me. Anyway, so that's why it's binding up, because everything else is lining up pretty good, but that's why this one doesn't want to line up, because the way this is slightly angled, it's got to go down in a little bit. So I'll get that taken care of. And I'll bring it back for final, because I want to see what kind of, because you can see the upward mobility is hit, because now I'm hitting this, because I had to move all this stuff around, as you recall. So this had to get dropped down. So this will all get taken care of. This piece will have to come up, and I'll figure out if I'm really going to need something. If I'm going to need something, I might have to just put a little farther in, because of course that's where the rod connects to it. So, all right, let me get this one tentatively pinned into place, which it doesn't seem like it wants to. It needs to move. So I'll have to slot this a little bit wider or something. So I'll work on this one. I'll bring it back in when it's all pinned up and I'm ready to drill the holes. Alright, welcome back. You can see I'm standing outside in the pit. There's still water in the pit. I'm standing in water right now. It's a beautiful part of being in the pit. There's no drainage. Anyway, here's what I had to do. I had to bring the bird outside. Ran into yet another issue, but you know what I'm going through. Alright. Sorry about that. Alright, here was the issue. When I hung the rudder, it was crooked, and it was crooked two ways. The rudder itself, what it did is it came up, and it's something you didn't really notice. Let's just call it the toe. The leading edge of it up here was at a goofy little angle, and it wasn't much, but it was still a goofy little angle. So I had to cut this. Right now I've got a shim in here. So I'll just go ahead and I'll end up epoxying this in place, cutting it off, sanding it down, and we'll consider that part done. The other thing I had to do was something, I'll take you out the stand, was something I worked on earlier when we were doing it in the wintertime indoors, and I didn't notice it until I put the rudder on, because this is the first time the rudder's been hung back on. I had to relocate the whole leading edge of this. If you remember, it had to be moved over this way towards me, about 1/8 of an inch to get this so it was perfectly lined up. Unfortunately, when I put everything together, I measured vertical just by eye, and apparently my eye was just a little bit off. I was probably about 1 degree off, over 6 inches. So that compounded the problem here. Now, as of right now, from the front, we're really close. It's a lot better than it was. If you can look at it, we're still, I mean, you're looking dead on it, and it's probably just a 1/4 of a 1/3 degree off, but I can straighten that out, because what I ended up doing was I had to recut the bottom of this, so this bottom part's loose again. So this also is in the process of getting moved. So when this gets done setting up, I'm going to give it an hour before I do it. I'm going to come back, I'm going to glue this piece back into place. I just had to cut it loose just so I can let it pivot around the center section right here. So I could just go ahead and glue this back into place. Then I'll run and pin it. I'll run pretty much just a piece of balsa through it, balsa of bamboo through, and just pin it so it can't move. So once I get that done, then I know it's all vertically straight. This will be vertically straight, this will be vertically straight. Then before I glue this in, I'll have everything lined up, so when it comes time, whether I got to shim this a little bit more or a little bit less to get that the nose or the toe lined up, that'll be done. So yes, once again, a lot longer than I wanted to spend doing this. I thought, heck, by now I'd have been done. I'd been moving on to something else, but no, was I wrong. All right, so anyway, we're gonna let this set up. I got a couple. I'm gonna probably come on up front, finish filling in these little spots, and I may come out with my little sanding block and start rounding this off, the top and the bottom. I haven't decided yet because it's hot and miserable outside, and the air conditioning's inside there, and right now it's I need this outside, so who knows. I'll see what I could do. As soon as I get a little farther along, I'll bring it back in and just let you know if anything else bad popped up. See you in a bit.